Hi, everyone. I'm Alan Bourne with Fairmount Partners, an independent investment banking firm focused on serving the needs of the middle market and emerging growth companies in technology, healthcare, consulting and technology services, and industrial and consumer services. We're really excited to be part of Forum once again. This year, Forum's virtual platform allows us to bring you conversations and perspectives that we trust will inform and inspire, and in particular, to bring you guests who might not otherwise have been able to join us in person. We are especially pleased to welcome back Peter Coffey to help facilitate with his uniquely inquisitive approach. Let's take a look.
Good day to everybody watching us. I'm Peter Coffey with Salesforce. I'm Vice President for Strategic Research, and I'm joined by Jeanne Ross, who's Principal Research Scientist at the Center for Information Systems Research at the Sloan School of Management at MIT. Jeanne, I think you and I had our first conversation order of 10 years ago.
At least.
When I was
it's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's so great to have you in this format, given that I can't visit the MIT campus as readily as I used to be able to do. And we began talking when Salesforce had barely begun to use the word platform, and now, of course, your book out since last September, Designed for Digital, is very much about a platform way of thinking in companies that may never have tried to think that way before, that thought they were a product company or a services company. And I'm so excited to be able to bring your point of view to the Forum community. You were top of our list as a prospective keynote speaker this year, but you had to be in Australia or something, back when going to places was a thing. And I would love to begin somewhere around, I think, page 60 of the book, where you talk about the essential thought in designing a platform, and you talk about the deconstruction of data, business, and infrastructure. I think for so many companies, the phrase digital transformation has been conflated with technology adoption, and then they discover that that's really just tying the running shoes and getting to the starting line so you can begin the process of changing culture and behavior. And let me get out of the way and let you, expand on some of the thinking that's so beautifully done in the book, and with so many solid examples of people who have in fact achieved this understanding.
Yeah. I think what's stunning about digital technology is it kind of took a while to get its roots in companies for us to start to appreciate that digital technologies change what's possible for us as a business, both in what we offer our customers and in the way we deliver our products and services. It's like all the rules are changing. And as the COVID crisis has highlighted, we know everything's different. We know it's not going to go back to the way things used to be, but we don't exactly know where we're going. There will be a new normal, and we can't describe it. So the speed element of digital, which is one of the first things people started to come to grips with. Everything happens faster. We have to respond faster. We get data faster. Everything's about speed. And yet, when we started studying companies trying to adapt to digital, everything was taking a long time. So we got into the habit of saying, yes, digital is all about speed, but it takes a long time. Suddenly, everybody has to work at home, and it didn't take very long at all for people to start working at home. Yeah. So the whole ability to respond rapidly was suddenly reality. It was a dream in the past, and now we're going, oh, I guess we can adapt quickly if we have to.
So one key point when you talked about that phrase "back to normal," which I'm trying to have deleted from the English language. Joe McKendrick at ZDNet, I have not found anyone who said it better than he did. 2025 got here 60 months early.
Totally.
Everything that people are doing now in the next 5 months, they probably thought they'd get around to in the next several years. But I think you nailed it, that we've demonstrated that under the pressure of necessity, these things did turn out to be done much more quickly. One of the things that I've noticed that 10 years ago, when the financial crisis challenged a lot of companies to adopt technology, when you realize how primitive it was only 10 years ago, when you look at how clumsy the conferencing tools were, Facebook was still at roughly 1/8 of a billion users. So in that time, we've trained the global population for a fluency and a level of comfort with digital platforms. But I'm sure that there's more than that, because cultural change is so much more than just hardware improvement in a company.
Yes, and I think it's really important to get your head around what you mean, because everybody is using the term, right? And the question is, well, what do you mean when you say digital culture?
Mhm.
I argue that we're going to fundamentally change some habits that are so embedded, we don't even think of them as habits anymore. Part of it is our hierarchy. We are accustomed to saying, well, the people at the top have to support me because they want me to get something done, but they're not supporting me.
Okay.
No time for that. You do not have to be supported. You have to get stuff done. And then as you get it done, you just keep asking for more and more support and you will get it. It's just different. The expectation, the need to take action is so real. And this gets back to your
That is
platform.
a very interesting point. Okay, so the flattening of the organization to take advantage of the collaborative power is not something that's going to happen by default. In fact, there may even be managements that say, great, now I can really enforce hierarchy, with my permissions on data and things like that. And I think your point is, be careful what you ask for. You might achieve it, and in the process, really destroy your ability to be thriving in this new situation.
I think the thing to recognize is that structure stabilizes.
Okay.
And hierarchical structure stabilizes a very slow organizational design.
So there's stability and then there's petrification, which is not the good kind. Yeah, okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So we must move decision-making to the point in the organization where the person or people who can see the impact of a decision are the ones making the decision. We do not have time for hierarchy. We do not want to get stuck in structures that simply enable us to do what we did in the past. And because of that, this gets back to your platform question, we need platforms that allow us to act quickly. They do give us a foundation. That's what platforms have always done. They embed something that we can rely on, and we're not starting from scratch every time we want to do something.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is, in the past, we would have said it's our ERP. What we'd say today is that platform is a repository of reusable components. It turns out one of those components may well be your ERP, but that's just one of your components.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was emphatically agreeing with you. You're reminding me, of course, of the famous Jeff Bezos memo, which I think is 2002, when he said to everybody in Amazon, from now on, everything you do must be conceived and architected as a composable service that can interact with other services. And I think your point in the book is that it's not merely about the way you architect your software. Your organization itself must start to think of itself as a continually recomposable pantry full of ingredients rather than just a fixed menu of things that you do.
Yes. And I think the thing that people are slow to grasp is that, yes, software is a big piece of this. I mean, we're becoming software companies, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't get the software right. We don't get the digital offering right if those components are not clearly assigned to an accountable person or team. So the accountability is essential here, and it's totally contradictory to the way we have thought about accountability in the past. In fact, we often didn't think about accountability. We thought about stuff that needed to get done and the tasks that would accomplish it. But
that is
go ahead.
So interesting, because it suggests that the CEO who says to his CTO, okay, I need you to design this for digital and be the custodian of the pool, is magnificently missing the point that without a distribution of ownership, accountability, and a degree of control that's never been dispersed before.
Right. And what the CTO or chief architect or CIO can own is the management design of the APIs, right? Here's how we think of APIs. Here's the repository. Here's how you access the capability. But then the actual components have owners. And this is about telling everybody to do their job and not other people's jobs, but to be totally aware of how their API, their component, whether it's an infrastructure component or a business component. I mean, infrastructure, we've got all these technology pieces, right, that provide the security and the capacity and the identity management, all those things. They're very real. They are components, and they'll mostly be run by technologists. But we also have the business component, the onboarding of the customer, the development of the dashboard, the deliverable of the service. Those are business components, and we have to be very, very clear about the boundaries. If we don't get the boundaries right, we don't get the API right. If we don't get the API right, everybody's doing everybody's job. And we don't deliver things to customers, and we don't respond quickly. So that the defining of that of the API, the component, that's management's job. It's never perfect. So you wake up every morning saying, okay, where is there confusion in the company? What do we have to make clearer? People keep telling me this is about trust. Trust follows from clarity. You get clarity around what you want people to do, and then you can trust them to do it. If you're vague about what you want them to do, you cannot trust them to do it because they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. So make the mission clear, accept that it won't actually be clear, and make it clearer. This
But I think what I'm hearing you say is that missions need to be defined and known by the people who are accountable for the business result. For the interaction with the customer, for the delivery of a raw material to a manufacturing line or so on. And this is reminding me of what I think it was it Bertrand Meyer who used the phrase programming by contract, where every service is defined not by the code inside, but by the actions taken and the guarantees made at its boundary. Yes. And the good thing about that is that if you think of it that way, then within every one of those boundaries, you've got tremendous freedom on technology use and internal implementation, because as long as you honor your contracts with all of the things that have interfaces with you, you won't break them when you make improvements or changes.
Yes.
That's another radical idea.
Yes. And one business leader said to me recently, we can think of everybody in the company as owning or being part of a team that owns an API. At first, I thought people don't have to understand API, but actually the better way of thinking about this is everybody should think of themselves as owning an API. So their job is to constantly make that API more valuable and better. But what they need to be constantly understanding and communicating is what goes into their API, who are they counting on, what do they need, and what comes out, who can count on them, what can they count on them for. If we can get everybody thinking that way, we become an amazingly effective and innovative organization. It's just hard, and we will never be perfect.
Yeah, but when companies try to do this, what is, in your experience, the thing that most often astonishes them when they say, we never realized we had calcified ourselves in this way until we tried to change it? What are the things that turn out to be most inhibiting of this way of thinking?
I think it is the total embrace of hierarchy without realizing you've totally embraced it.
Okay.
So this waiting for permission, this insisting on total clarification from the top. I mean, people are paralyzed by their hierarchy and they don't know it because they have things they can do. They can pass paper, they can do some more analysis, they can make suggestions, but they wait. They just wait. And we really want people to take action after they've said, I'm going to do the following for the following reason with this following expected outcome. Because if we think that way, everything we do either has a good outcome or we immediately realize it doesn't and we figure out what we have to change.
Right. And that is such a great point, because I have heard people say that only in Silicon Valley does anyone actually say learn to fail faster. No one actually wants to be good at failing. But someone at a Dreamforce conference a few years ago said, don't present it that way. Present it as creating an organization that is ready to learn by experimentation.
Yes.
And the famous Thomas Edison line, we're making excellent progress. We know 1,000 things that don't work and no one else knows that much.
Well, and here's the thing, Peter, I just disagree with it, with the belief that we're going to learn from failure. I mean, mostly what people learn is something failed. But if they don't know why it failed, the leaders at UPS once said to me, when something goes wrong with some of our experiments, we actually don't know if it was a bad idea or if it was badly executed.
You're saying having lots of failures doesn't generate learning. You have to have a well understood process of, okay, let's figure out why.
Yeah.
You can't just say, great, we're failing fast. No, that's not a metric of accomplishment. Yeah. Okay.
And you know what that's all about? That's about becoming good at hypothesizing.
Yes.
Most people say, well, I'm just going to try this. And then we just try it. And then what, right? But if I try it with the understanding that my hypothesis is the following, and the way I'll make sure I learn if my hypothesis is right is by designing the experiment this way, we're going to learn. Most companies, in fact, I'm amazed how many pharma companies have said to me, oh, we're terrible at hypothesis. You would think every pharma company full of scientists would be doing this for a living, but it's that hard that even if we've been trained to do this, we'll often not do it well.
Well, for so many years, software has been striving to earn the label of software engineering. And now here we are saying engineering is what you do when you're going to be able to do it and prototype it and then build 1,000 just like it. And that's not where we are. We need to be in an iteration loop of continuous experimentation, learning and improvement, and not just, throwing things at the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah.
So there's so many different ways to think you've learned the form of this agility and bravery, and you've really just been throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, and that's not going to take it right.
Yeah, no, so true.
So I've asked you what gets in the way most, and you've talked about the lack of consciousness of one's own hierarchy, so that's fascinating. If someone said to you, Jeanne, I get it, what can I do tomorrow that will most accelerate my organization moving in this direction? Is there a memo to write? Is there an action to perform? Is there an example to set? And maybe not necessarily at the top of the organization, but just in one of the business units. If someone says, what string can I pull to greatest effect most quickly? What are some of the things you would say to someone who wants to become the guerrilla digital transformer of an organization?
Yeah, I would say if you just want to start transforming, identify one unsolvable problem in your company. Or in your business, or even in your tiny little unit, right? Put the smartest, most ambitious, most energetic person in charge. Tell them they are accountable. They should do what needs to be done and just solve the problem.
Yeah.
And then it'll get solved. It will get solved. It may not be a perfect solution, but it will get solved. And then you just explain to everyone how that worked. And then you say, day after day, we're going to adopt that model of problem solving. We're going to understand a problem. We're going to solve a problem. And we're going to articulate problems. And we're going to gradually learn how we're going to organize around what it is we need to get done as a business. I think the most important thing, if we're going to start changing, is to change. It's fascinating to me that in exec ed courses, we often end with, okay, I want you to go out and identify an action item so that you can move forward. 90% of the suggestions are, well, we're going to analyze this, or we're going to decide on that. It's almost never an action item.
Wow.
Never.
Wow.
And it's because of who we are. We think we're powerless, and we behave like we're powerless, and that makes us more powerless. We've got to start taking action in our companies.
You're giving me an echo of something that I heard, of all people, Tony Blair say last week, when he said, you have to be prepared to ignore your organization chart. You said, pick the right people and put them in charge of something. And he said, you've got to tear up your organization chart and put the people who can think and collaborate and get stuff done in a place where they've got the power to do it. The flip side of that, and you've probably heard of Conway's Law, which is that no organization can build a system that doesn't essentially mirror its own organization chart. And that if you want to have bold, innovative change, you need to be prepared to redesign your organization and not try to do something genuinely new within the communication networks, architectures, influence diagrams, hierarchies, whatever you call them, that have defined your organization up until this point.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
A lot of what your book is about.
Pardon me?
It's a lot of what your book is about. When you say designed for digital, you mean the organization must not be allowed to prevent the technology from doing what it can do.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And I think if we can, we'll have to change the mentality to pull this off. I have a daughter who's at Google, and I said, do you really feel like you get accountability right? And she said, our intention, I think, is really, really good. Our execution, of course, could always be better.
Yeah.
But she said, the thing I love about the way we think about accountability at Google is that we accept it. So if there's something that's really not working for me at Google, I can easily identify who's accountable. I can tell them why it's not working for me. And that's the end of my role. If they own it, and they will either address my concern or they will not. But I will not try to do it myself. I will not go to their boss. They are accountable, and I understand that. And it lets me then focus my energies on things I can take care of. And I just think so many companies are doing things by committee and trying to get everybody on board and analyzing things to death. And if we just say, focus on the accountability, focus on what these components are, we can make enormous progress in becoming digital businesses.
Well, Jeannie, one of the first people who ever had his name put on a law of organization was C. Northcote Parkinson, who everyone knows his first law that work expands to fill the time available. But his third law is that success leads to complexity, complexity leads to decay, and I've always thought that was a terribly bleak view. It would be nice if success could lead to energy and capability, which could lead to continued success. And I think what you've been talking about is how to make sure that scale does not create stagnation, and that effective governance does not turn into constraining hierarchy. And I love your most vigorous point just made, is that if you put accountability at the point where data and computational capability and connection and collaboration all intersect, people are able to do amazing things.
Yep. And they make technology easy. You know, we keep thinking that the technology is going to be really hard and it's going to be a huge investment and all this kind of stuff. The technology will be such a natural if we can get the accountability right.
Well, you and I both have children old enough to be getting really cool things done, but young enough that they've never actually seen a time when technology was hard.
Yeah.
You know, if anything, I worry that, they've been dealing with magic black glass that works almost perfectly almost all the time, and they aren't ready to debug. But that's a discipline that's learned the hard way. Jeannie, this is probably about as much time as we have, and I'm so pleased that we were able to do this. We saw each other too infrequently when it involved getting on airplanes. It was wonderful to have you as our guest at World Tour Boston and at Dreamforce, and I hope someday again. But this year's Dreamforce will be an all-digital event. Maybe that makes it easier to imagine. It'll be our guest at Dreamforce. And thank you so much for being part of this year's forum. I'm glad it was able to happen.
Well, it's always great to talk with you, Peter, and thanks for having me.
I'm Peter Coffey with Salesforce, and I've been joined by Jeanne Ross, Principal Research Scientist at the Center for Information Systems Research at the Sloan School of Management at MIT. Jeanne, have a great day. Thanks for being part of Forum.
Thank you, Peter.
Be sure to watch the Forum On-Demand series, as well as Forum Live October 7th and October 14th. Thank you.
So you met these folks in our first on-demand session. Now let's learn a little more about the people behind our demo pit companies.
Yeah, I'm a young startup founder, as you can probably imagine. I very much would say I am probably young, but also still trying very hard. We've been around for 4 years, and I am still very excited to work for Interseller and try to obviously make it the next unicorn, of course. But that's.
If it's not broke, you should fix it. And this is actually a situation where there is an industry problem that is broke, and we can fix it. But it's really about risk taking. It's about listening to the clients, listening to the market, and moving forward and executing and delivering.
I would say that I am, interestingly, an avid surfer. I love the beaches. And that's another reason I love the Philadelphia region, because we're, 1 hour away from the beautiful Jersey Shore. So that's a big part of my life.
Ever since I was young, even in high school, before I joined the job force, I was always finding opportunities and being fearless in looking for ways I could bring value to myself and to others. So that means before I even finished college, I had set up a home tutoring kind of setup or a home tutoring circuit. I worked at a museum. I worked in a science lab. I worked at a Fortune 100 engineering company. I did work for a PhD program for a college. And this was all simply because I'm constantly fascinated by learning about businesses, teams, and new areas of the world.
Well, I can tell you a funny story about something that changed my life. And that is that when I graduated from Villanova in 1998, I was a psychology major. And as many of you know, or may know, it was really tough to find a job in business, being an arts major at that time. I was really excited to potentially go work at a big consulting firm where a lot of the business students were getting jobs. And I was lucky enough to get an interview and went downtown and had my suit on and did the whole thing. Thought it went really well. And then after the interview, I was kind of collected my things and was in the hallway on my way to the elevator and ran into the partner at this consulting firm that I had just interviewed with, and kind of flubbed the niceties of that moment. And while I really wanted to work at that job, I think not being prepared in that moment for that small social connection pretty much altered the rest of my entire career, because I didn't get the job, had to go find work elsewhere, and found my way into the social impact space about 10 years later.
I was working, I was financially secure, and what I realized is actually earning more money was not giving me the satisfaction in life. So I came to a stage where money wasn't a motivator for me, and so that's why I wanted to do something, do my work in an area which will give me satisfaction.
Way back many years ago, when my career was getting started, I worked for large organizations, and they were great companies. But what I ultimately figured out that the culture that the organization had wasn't necessarily the right fit for me. I wanted to move fast and break things. I was very entrepreneurial, and that really wasn't the culture that they had fostered there. So while I was successful based on the way that they defined success at the organization, I wasn't as engaged as I could be. And I was looking for an environment where I could feel more engaged. Fast forward several years later, I kind of stumbled my way through a couple of other organizations with different types of cultures, and the teams got smaller. The work became a bit more personal. We got to know each other at a different level, and the culture was such that we were able to move fast and break things. And the closer I got to those environments, the more engaged I was and the more fulfilled I was in the work that I was doing.
And for me, I actually took a more academic path to it. When I was getting my PhD, my dissertation and my research was actually looking at organizational socialization, how somebody comes into a company, and how do you predict employee engagement through that. And of the aspects of organizational socialization that had the highest prediction of employee engagement was the alignment of goals and values between the organization and the individual. So really making sure that you find the right fit and the right match for the organization drives performance, productivity, profitability, all of these things. And I was really looking for a way to put this research into action.
Regarding language, it started a long time ago. I learned German in 4th grade, and at that time, language learning really excited me. So in high school, I studied French, Spanish, and Russian. And then right out of high school, I went on a 2-year Christian mission to Japan and learned to speak Japanese fluently.
I'm Grace Chi with Pulse Dive. Thanks for watching Forum Reimagined.
Make sure to tune in to our Forum keynote series in October for our demo pit company pitches. To learn more about these companies, you can log into the Forum mobile app or desktop platform and visit their company profiles.
If you haven't already downloaded the app, hold your smartphone camera up to this QR code or search for Packed Events in the App Store. Once downloaded, join the forum community within the app using the code 20Forum20.